Do you have the record of this?
Yes, I do. The order of service?
I don't have it.
I'd just like to ask you to please turn off your cell phones and electronic devices if you haven't done so already. And I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening and to welcome you as we pay tribute to Ralph's memory and be with his family at this difficult time. We're taught in the Hebrew Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes, that a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for ripping and a time for sowing. There's a time for rejoicing and a time for mourning. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many memories, some bitter, some sweet. During the course of our service, we'll have an opportunity to hear and share many memories of Ralph Finley. The service this evening is framed by the Kaddish, the prayer traditionally said by the mourners. We're going to start with a musical rendition of the Kaddish, Cold Kaddish by Maurice Ravel, and we'll be finishing up our service by reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, which is in your prayer book. I'll direct you to the appropriate place when the time comes. So Robert and Anthony will now play Ravel's Kaddish. Those of you who have a prayer book, I invite you to turn to page 197, where you'll find the 23rd Psalm, which is arguably the most recognizable of all of the Psalms, and perhaps the most recognizable verse in this most recognizable of Psalms are the words, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." When we lose a loved one, it is indeed a valley that we walk through. And it is hoped that with the support of family and friends, and with the presence of God, that we will get through that valley that inevitably comes in each of our lives. This translation of this psalm may differ somewhat from what you may be familiar with. You'll find the word Adonai in here. Adonai is a word that literally means my master, a Hebrew word. It is a word that we use as a code for the name of God. In Jewish tradition, we don't know the name of God, how the name was pronounced. So we use for the four-letter tetragrammaton, the name of God, we substitute the word Adonai, my master. I'm going to read the psalm in the Hebrew, and then I invite you to join with me in translation. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echzar, b'na'ot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magalei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha u'mish'antecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yurdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti bebeit Adonai la'orech yamim. Let's read the translation. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God gives me repose in green meadows and guides me over calm waters. God will revive my spirit and direct me on the right path, for that is God's way. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are at my side. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. I'd like to share with you for a few moments a few reflections about Raphael Ralph Finley, whom I had a chance to meet this summer when he was living in Shrewsbury. Ralph was born on December 18, 1922, to Samuel and Leah Finkelberg, the third of 4 children. The surname would later be changed to Finley. He grew up in London. His father died when he was 8, and then his aunt died, and her 3 children, Ralph's first cousins, were taken in to his household, so he then became one of 7 children in the household. The family did not have a lot of money, and Ralph had to start work at an early age. Ralph met Gloria when on vacation, and Gloria, by the way, could not physically be here with us tonight, but she is participating in the service in her apartment in Florida. And they were married in 1948. They would enjoy 66 years of marriage together. Robert was born 2 years later in 1950, Anthony 4 years after that. While Ralph was not able to go to college because of his family situation growing up, he and Gloria believed strongly in the value and importance of education, and they encouraged their boys to pursue a university education. Ralph was very musical, and he supported both boys' musical activities and talents, which have been and will continue to be very much on display this evening. When job opportunities and fate brought Robert and Anthony to the United States, Ralph and Gloria came as well in order to be close to their sons and to their grandson Richard. They first settled locally in Framingham and then chose the warmer climes of Delray Beach. Back when they were still in England, the family was active in the Kenton District Synagogue. Ralph managed the Harrow Youth Orchestra, in which Anthony played, and he founded the Jewish Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, which performed in many countries, including Israel and Poland. He was an active Freemason and belonged to a lodge in Framingham. While we remember Ralph Finley for all of these things, we remember him most of all, for his generosity of spirit and for his goodness. When I heard about Ralph's story and his journey, I was reminded of one of the great rabbis in the Talmud. His name was Yochanan ben Zakkai, Yochanan the son of Zakkai, who asked his students which was the most important quality to which a person could aspire. One said a good eye, which meant generosity. Another said a good friend, implying friendliness. A third said a good neighbor, meaning goodwill. Yet a fourth said one who considers the consequences, who has foresight. And then a fifth disciple, Rabbi Elazar, said that the most important quality that a person could have is a lev tov, a good heart. To which the teacher, Rabbi Yochanan, responded, I prefer that answer. A lev tov, a good heart, for that includes all the others. Ralph Finley had a good and giving heart. He was a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, and a good friend to so many. He leaves them and all of you with many warm and wonderful memories and a rich and lasting legacy. I want to close by conveying words to the mourners, to Gloria, to Robert, and to Anthony. Words that Ralph recited many times over the years in the synagogue. For Ralph was a Kohen. He was a priest. Unlike in Catholicism, where you go to divinity school to become a priest, in Jewish tradition, you are born into a priestly family. If your father is a priest, then you are a priest. And the priests, the Kohanim, trace their ancestry all the way back to Aaron, the original high priest in the Bible. And in traditional congregations, it is customary on the Sabbath and on Jewish holidays for the priests to chant the Birkat Kohanim, the threefold priestly blessing that serves as a conduit to pass on the divine blessing to the rest of the congregation. So Ralph said these words many, many times over the years, and I passed them on to his mourners. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. May the divine presence and the presence of family and friends give you comfort during this difficult time. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May the Holy One's face shine upon you and favor you. When you see Ralph's face in your memories, when you remember his words, his presence, his place and role in your lives as a husband, a father, a grandfather, may those memories bring you warmth and inspiration. And Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Holy One's countenance lift up toward you and grant you shalom, wholeness, and peace. May time and the support of those around you heal the brokenness that you now feel, and may the memories that you have of Ralph and the legacy he leaves you restore you to wholeness and peace. Amen. Robert and Anthony will now play the Valse Triste by France de Vexay. I'm sure I got that pronunciation correct.
But we chose this piece because it's bittersweet. It's a waltz. It's a beautiful piece, but it also has, as you'll hear, some sad elements. And we don't want to be totally sad about our father, but you know, he loved music and he had a lot of spirit, and we just thought this would be an appropriate thing to play. So now I'd like to say a few words about my dad. He's a very caring man. As the rabbi said, he was universally liked. That's a characteristic. Very few people have that. Everyone loved him. He cherished my mother, and as the rabbi said, I hope she can hear me. She's still on the telephone there listening. I mean, we have wonderful, wonderful memories of when we were children. We had an extended family, and with my mother's family, we went all over Europe, and we have so many great tales. We went to Italy, we went to a little place in Mallorca, in the Balearic Islands. We went as a family, we had a great time. I remember many times, one time we went to France, and we drove down to a little place in the Basque Country called Saint-Jean-de-Luz, which is where Raphael was, and the connection is that Caddice that he played was arranged by Raphael. I even remember a strange thing. We went down, I was so exhausted, I fell asleep in the room, and my brother and my dad almost had to break the door down to get in so that we could continue our vacation. So, little things like that. And he also, my dad, didn't take account of the fact that when we drove down, it was the national vacation day in France. So we spent a whole day on the highway trying to get across. Plus the fact he, I think, drove on the wrong side of the road. He instilled in us, he had old-fashioned values, but in the good way. I mean, he tried to instill in Robert and myself a sense of right and wrong, and we certainly admired him for that. And as the rabbi said, he put a premium on education and made sure that Robert and I had good education. And even though he didn't have the chance himself, we always were sad that he was forced to go out and work when he was very young, but in those days there was no choice. He brought his love of music everywhere he went. Even though he wasn't a musician, he had a fine tenor voice, and he used to sing in Gilbert and Sullivan operas when he was a young man. And after decades and decades, he brought that back. When he was living in Florida, they had a community, a big center in where they lived, it was a huge auditorium, and they put on annual shows. So he had the opportunity to come back and sing. And one thing we remember, he was in My Fair Lady, and what other role would he be? But Arthur Doolittle, the Cockney father, and guardian, dustman as they call him, of Liza Doolittle. And he sang I'm Getting Married in the Morning, and he had a top hat. You'll see a picture of him in the back in his suit. And everyone came and asked for his autograph afterwards because they couldn't believe how he could do a Cockney accent with such a lad. But the truth is, he was a Cockney. So that was a nice memory. And yeah, he was born within the sound of the Bow Bells in London, which is the actual official definition was a Cockney. It's not really the accent, it's where you were born. And we remember, Rabbi mentioned the orchestras. He was a manager of the Harrow Youth Orchestra where I was, and he instilled a great appreciation for that, of orchestral playing. And he was asked to start the Jewish Youth Orchestra, which was an amazing thing. We had people coming from all over the country. People would come on a Sunday morning all the way down to London from Birmingham, and there was one fellow with a trombone. He hitchhiked down from Birmingham every Sunday morning to play in the orchestra. And that orchestra went on for decades. I think it's still in existence. But they traveled to Poland, they traveled to Israel. And it was all due to my father's insistence that we have that institution. So that was a wonderful thing. And, and basically we have some great memories of him. He was a great father. He was a great family man. And was a great example. So he would be very, very missed. Play a piece
Now
now.
we're going to play both of these. I recommend
Both of
that.
these.
It's a very well-known piece for soprano singer and piano. It's also played on violin, cello, various instruments.
Yeah, please come and sit down.
Yes,
The seats here.
please sit here. The organizer stays on. I'd now like to share some happy memories from my father with you. My father was a very good family man who loved his wife, sons and relatives very much. Dad was very keen on amateur dramatics and had a wonderful tenor singing voice. I saw him perform in various Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. He was a member of the local amateur dramatic group called the Kentonics, named after the town of Kent in northwest London where we lived. When I won a scholarship to study piano at Trinity College Music in London, he used to take me there every Saturday morning, and afterwards we sometimes had picnics in the local parks during the summer. We had a really nice time together. We were always surrounded by music in our family. And I remember once when my father arranged for the whole family to attend a special performance of the Yeoman of the Guard. That's a Gilbert and Sullivan opera at the Tower of London. It was a really special occasion and a nice setting. It was a really wonderful event, which I enjoyed very much. He attended all my concerts and gave me very good support and encouragement. And he came with all the family down to the University of Sussex, where I was an engineering student, to hear me play the Shostakovich Second Piano Concerto with the orchestra. The whole family came with my grandparents and my teachers, and it was a very memorable occasion. In the early 1960s, he took me and my brother to see President Kennedy arriving at Heathrow Airport. And he was met by the Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, at that time. And I remember that very clearly as if it were just a few years ago, and he came within a few yards of me. We were standing in the street and saw him very well. He was very much loved in the United Kingdom, President Kennedy. And also, we went to see the Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, who arrived for a tour of the United Kingdom, and again, he went with the whole family to see Yuri Gagarin. Dad used to, in his business, he was involved in the import and exporting business, and one time he was involved with exporting goods from Russia, from the former Soviet Union. And I remember going to a really big exposition at Earl's Court, a big convention centre in London, and we saw some very interesting things, including a replica of the Sputnik, the first satellite to orbit the Earth. I spent a very nice time with my dad, just the two of us, in Israel in 1972. We stayed at a kibbutz just on the outskirts of Jerusalem called Kiryat Anavim in the summer. It was a very nice place where you had beautiful perfumes of the flowers and the fir trees there, and we had a really nice few days there. And then we went to Netanya, which is a coastal seaside resort on the north of Israel on the coast, to attend a friend's wedding. When I spent 6 months in Israel, Mum and Dad visited me, and we had a really enjoyable time touring all the country. I went on Caribbean cruises with my parents, including one during their wedding anniversary to Aruba and to various other islands, and we had really nice times together. When my father was in the nursing home in Shrewsbury, he was particularly happy when I arranged Skype video calls with friends and relatives around the world. He was able to see them and speak to them, and he was just amazed by technology. And even though the friends and family couldn't visit him at that time, it was like being with him, and vice versa. And he was so excited to see his grandson Richard and Richard's fiancée in their new house, and Richard used an iPhone and showed him round the house and the garden, all the flowers. It was a nice sunny day, and he was so happy to see that. My father was a very kind man who was loved by everyone, and I will really miss him terribly. At this moment, I hardly believe he's no longer around. I'd like to thank my friend Adrian Gilder very much for the support and love she gave my father and to my family during this very sad and difficult time, visiting many times in the nursing home and in the hospital, making arrangements to use this function room. I'd also like to thank Rabbi Schwartz for your kind words, and thank Anthony for supporting me, and also thank you all very much indeed for coming to honor the life of my father, Raphael Finley. I'd now like to play a short piece by Robert Schumann called Traumerei. It means dreaming. It's from the set of pieces called Kindersehen and Scenes of Childhood. It's a beautiful piece, very song-like, very famous. I'd like to now ask if any members of the audience would like to share any words and remembrances of my father. Anybody would like to say anything? Please go ahead.
My first meeting with Ralph and Gloria happened several years ago when Ralph was playing in downtown Boston. He and Gloria walked around the corner. You might think she was Jackie Kennedy, and he was John Kennedy Jr. Gloria wrapped her arm in Ralph's elbow, and they were so regal, and they were so beautiful. And to look at Gloria, I saw Ralph's blue eyes. saw Ralph, statuesque. During one of the moments of the performance, Robert and Ralph were walking, and I leaned over to Gloria, and I whispered, Gloria, father and son, are they twins? And she looked, she had the most glorious laugh, and she said, yes, they are twins. They are more like twins than they are father and son. Most recently, when I visited Ralph, the home in Shrewsbury, you know how we all go around and we have these nice jerseys and they have nice logos on them. And one day I said to him, are you okay, Ralph? And he was staring. And I put my hands on my hips and I said, Ralph, are you checking out my boobs? And he said, yes, I'm trying to read the logo. And that was so Ralph. His grin was as wide as the sky. The man was not only handsome on the outside, he was as handsome on the inside. He gave me days and weeks of love. Although I'm not his daughter, I'm merely a friend and son's. So thank you. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Robert and Anthony, for memories I can carry with me as long as I can live.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to say any words?
Gloria, you still with us? This is Rabbi Schwartz. That was, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but we're
Videoing.
yes, we're not done, Gloria, I'm just checking in. I want to say hello. Yeah. She, yeah, it was near the microphone. All right, we're going to continue. Hang on.
So I'm Dave, friend of Robert's. I've only met your father about a dozen times, but there was always a life to him, and it was always good to see him. I'm sorry about your loss.
Anybody else?
I'm Andrea, and I live across the street from Robert, and when we moved in, John and I, over 20 years ago, we didn't have any kids, and we got to know Ralph and Gloria when they came and visited over the summer, and when we finally had kids, we didn't have any, neither John or I had any parents nearby, so it was almost like Ralph and Gloria were their second grandparents. You know, when they came up in the summer, they were always so excited to see Rachel and Josh, and I know also Natalie and Wesley that live across the way too. It was just so special to see that their faces would light up about seeing how much the kids were growing and all the wonderful things they were doing. And those memories are really important to me and are really important to our family because my kids didn't really have those grandparents nearby, and Ralph and Gloria did a wonderful job making my kids feel very special. And I just want to say thank you, Gloria, and thank you very much, Ralph.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Gary. I'm a friend of Robert's, colleague from where he used to work at General Dynamics, and also a neighbor. And I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Ralph and Gloria when they used to visit during the summer together in the neighborhood. And they would go for walks around the neighborhood. And several times during the summer, my wife Diane and I had a wonderful opportunity of just chatting with them, and they just seemed like this young, lovely couple. Well, they weren't that young. And they're just, Ralph was just, in my mind, he was just such a nice, gentle person, and who couldn't love him?
Anyone else?
I'll go. I don't know if I can be as articulate as everybody else, but on the theme of walking, I also have some really lovely memories of Ralph. I'm Tony's partner, and Ralph was so loving to me. Way more than I ever thought I deserved to be. I mean, he just offered such love so immediately, just was so welcoming and wonderful. And Tony's very much like that as well. But I have some wonderful memories. I think it was the first time I met him. Tony and I were in Florida, and I met Gloria and Ralph, and the first thing that they ended up doing within the first hour that I met them is they were singing to me. And I will never, ever forget. I don't know how they got into, they offered me some tea, which I thought was very British. And no, actually, I think it was at Robert's house. I think it was up here. It was at Robert's house. They offered me some tea, and somehow they ended up singing this duet, this very British song about let's drink another cup of tea, and it had all these. It was like 100 bottles of beer on the wall. It kept going and going and going. But the two of them were singing out at full voice this song about drinking tea, and I just thought, wow, this is really something really special, and so full of life and so lovely. And then fast forward down to when Tony and I visited them in Florida. Tony wanted to show me a park that was really like boardwalks over a swamp where you could look down and see the alligators and see the wildlife and the beautiful birds and everything. And Ralph wanted to come with us. So we said, sure. Now Ralph was 90, 89, I mean, right? And so he wanted to come with us, and we just started meandering out over these boardwalks, and Ralph was keeping up with us, and we didn't think twice. And then I grabbed Tony and I said, oh my God, Tony, we have walked so far out. How are we going to get, your father was going, oh, my knee hurts. I said, how are we going to get him back? And he walked a mile back. He was 90 years old, and he walked a mile, and I thought, we're going to have to call the paramedics. He walked the whole thing, and I was always so astounded by his vitality and his kind nature. And even when he was in the nursing home, and he was slowing down a little bit or whatever, he lit up like a Christmas tree when I sang to him, I'm Getting Married in the Morning. He just loved it because that was his song. Yeah, I just, what a guy. I mean, guys are really lucky and blessed to have had him for so long in your lives.
Thank you. Anybody else? Have it back to Rabbi who wants to say some prayers.
So I just want to thank Robert and Anthony for putting together this beautiful tribute in pictures in the back and words and memories and music. It's a tribute to their dad. And I know they wanted to give you all an opportunity to share some memories, and those of you who spoke certainly enhanced and enriched the words that we were able to offer. We're coming now to the two closing prayers of most Jewish funerals, and then one more musical piece. The first prayer is called the El Malei Rachamim, God full of mercy. I'm going to chant that in the Hebrew and then read a translation. And following that, we come to the Mourner's Kaddish, which you'll find on 198 and 199. This is for the two of you to share. The Kaddish is offered in Hebrew as well as in transliteration, so while it's technically for the mourners to recite, I always invite any people in the congregation or the audience who would like to join with them. So for these two prayers, I'm going to ask you to please rise.
If anyone wants to cover their head,
Me as well.
El male rachamim, shochein bamromim. Amsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina. B'ma'alot kedoshim utorim, kizohar harakia masirim. Et nishmat Raphael ben Shmuel HaKohen v'Leah, shehalach li olamo, b'gan eden tehei menuchato. Ana ba'al harachamim, hastirehu b'seter kinafecha li olamim, utzror bitzror hachayim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May the memory of Raphael Finley be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source and our destination, our beginning and our end. May Ralph's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share be not severed in sorrow. May Ralph rest in peace, and let us say Amen. We now turn to the Mourner's Kaddish. Yigadal, v'yikadash, shemei rabbah, v'yamad divrach yirutei, v'yamlit malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalah uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach, v'olam olomei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei dekudshah brichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May God, who makes peace in the heavens, bring peace to us, to all of Israel, and to all of humankind. Let us say amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. We have one more piece by Robert Schumann. After that, you're invited to enjoy some refreshments.
I'm going to play a short piece by Robert Schumann from a set of pieces called Valsane and Forest Scenes. And this is Abschied, which means farewell. It's a really beautiful.
much for being here.
How's it going, Bill? Yeah, I thought that
Hi, Laurel. How is
Good
you?
to see you.
I don't think I saw you since Westboro.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for seeing
Laurel was looking for the information in the paper.
Robert.
Yeah.
Well, she's upset she couldn't make it up here, but she had surgery on her leg, a very painful throat, and we really have to come down to that's why I just no time to could go down quickly, and she couldn't walk.
She chose wisely. Take care of herself so you guys can have her. Everything was beautiful, yes. Yeah, it was.
All I could picture was the grandeur, because I remember it very well. These were sweet,
I don't know, I think so.